Hello again, honeys. Welcome back to the Beesness, your hand-picked headlines from your host in terms of the arts world. I am once again in the company of furry four-legged friends, so apologies for spare collar jingles or anything else you may hear. Although we didn't really see any follow-ups this week, our headlines covered all our typical categories: sales, auctions, events, institutional and legal, the random category. So let's dive right on in. First and foremost, we heard that Scabby the Rat, an icon of labor strikes, has gotten his own New York City show. Our work in question here is an over life-size inflatable rodent with bloodshot eyes, spiky claws, a scabby patch on his tummy, and snarling incisors. He is frequently seen at union pickets, meaning to symbolize workplace mixed treatment, strike breaking to the greater public, and thus is considered a signature symbol of organized labor in the U.S. Scabby is now the centerpiece of Austrian artist Marlene Hausegger's ongoing exhibition titled Scabby, A Rat Around Town, that is taking place at Open Source Gallery in Brooklyn through November 29th. In total, the installation combines black and white photos scratched as if by a rat, audio excerpts from former Amazon worker and present-day union activist Natalie Monarez, and inflatable Scabby, of course, with words pulled from Bruce Springsteen's 1978 Factory, painted across the rat's torso and legs. The lyrics have been edited to reference women instead of men. So why we care? As the aforementioned union activist Monarez says, quote, Scabby is an all-encompassing symbol, depending on what your perception is and what your experience is within your union and your workplace, end quote. We also couldn't help but notice that our source article pointed out, ironically, the same business that fabricates this labor rights advocacy icon, a manufacturer in Illinois called Big Sky Balloons, is itself not unionized. Last week also saw an impressive array of post-pop art relics go under the hammer at Bonham's Culture Auction. The auction is set to run through November 19th, meaning you can still make it. We took notice of this sale for its impressive highlights, which include a striking multi-panel piece by Barry McGee, estimated between 15 and 20,000 British pounds or 19 to 26,000 US dollars, works from David Bowie's as well as Bob Dylan's lesser-known painting practices, and archival fashion gems, which include a Karl Lagerfeld 2014 supermarket shopping bag for Chanel, John Galliano's 2001 boombox bag for Christian Dior, and a cornerstone piece from Alexander McQueen's career-defining 1996 collection, the Dante Matador coat, which is expected to get between 24 and 28,000 British pounds or 30 to 36,000 US dollars. What's fascinating about this sale is it's expressly meant to honor and pay homage to the pop and street artists of the 20th century, especially the mid to late, and the influences they had, which shaped this new era of expression and creativity that we've seen in contemporary art and contemporary fashion alike. Plus, let's be honest, the rarity and price of some of the lots included here, pretty eyebrow-raising. On a bit heavier of a note, we also saw the Royal Film Commission, or RFC, of Jordan withdrew one of its film entries from the 97th Academy Awards, citing diplomatic pressures. The film in question, My Sweet Land, is by Jordanian-Armenian director Serene Hayrabedian. It follows an 11-year-old boy during and in the aftermath of the Second Artsakh War. Hyperallergic describes it as, quote, a grim coming-of-age story. So what all happened here? Why is it being pulled? Well, the first premiere of the film was in mid-June at the Sheffield Doc Fest in England. Soon after, it debuted and won 3 awards in the Arab Feature Documentary category at the RFC-produced Amman International Film Festival. But Azerbaijani media outlets began slamming the film as, quote, slander and anti-Azerbaijani propaganda, end quote, after this screening and subsequent selection of the film as the Jordanian entry for the Best International Film category. RFC Jordan then withdrew the film as the submission for the Best International Film category last week. Reports from Deadline stated that the film was withdrawn in an alleged effort to not stunt recently growing ties between the two entities as well. One of the many issues with this withdrawal is that it wasn't really done nicely, for lack of better words. Director Hyra Bedian and producer Aza Harani said to Hyperallergic that on October 10th, both received emails from the Academy notifying them of the fact of their withdrawal without any further explanation and without RFC warning. The two were even more shocked by this, given that the RFC had even provided some monetary support for the project back in 2021 through its Jordan Film Fund initiative. Ira Bedian went on to say that when they reached out to the Film Commission for an explanation, quote, "They told us that they've been in the process of trying to appeal against the decision issued by the Jordanian Foreign Ministry after complaints and pressure from the Azerbaijani embassy," end quote, but both do not have particularly high hopes. We care because this is a dicey situation, how much is it necessary or appropriate to talk about difficult pasts when you could potentially have a better future right around the corner? While we can definitely ponder away at what it's worth to have freedom of expression versus political cohesion, we will leave it for today at the fact that the Academy has since approved My Sweet Land's qualification to enter the Best Documentary Feature Film category. So we may see it at the Oscars yet. We also heard last week that Iceland's top fishing company has won a judgment against an Icelandic artist over the so-called fish rot scandal. A UK judge ruled in favor on Thursday of this largest fishing company in Iceland, Samherji, after it sued Icelandic artist Oddur Einstein Froriksson, known as Odie, and spelled Odee. Odie had posed as the company and apologized for its alleged role in this fish rot scandal. Now, I know that's a really gross name, but it actually had nothing to do with rotten fish. The scandal was in fact named for a cache of over 30,000 documents leaked by a former Samherji employee in Namibia. Published by WikiLeaks in November of 2019, the files included email correspondences between various Samherji employees indicating the company had made millions of dollars worth of bribes to high-ranking Namibian politicians and officials in order to acquire the Southern African nation's fishing quota for itself. The fish rot case itself only reached Namibia's high courts at the end of 2023 and is ongoing. Samherji still strongly denies the bribery allegations. The 10 accused Namibian officials have protested their innocence, but have been in detention for over 4 years now. So what exactly were these artworks or artist actions that got him in trouble? They came in 3 parts back in 2023. The first artwork he created was titled "We're Sorry." It was a fake UK-registered replication of Samherji's official website with that phrase plastered across it. He additionally painted "We're Sorry" on a wall at Iceland's Reykjavik Art Museum. And thirdly, he made a press release titled "Samherji Apologizes, Pledges Restitution and Cooperation with Authorities." He sent this to 100 foreign media outlets in 20 different countries, and it reads all sorts of things like, "We at Samherji would like to issue a formal apology. We admit to using facilitation fees to enable corrupt financial transactions, blah, blah, blah." Last May, however, a different UK High Court judge granted the company interim injunctions to make Odie take down the fake site. In September, in London, Samherji made its official claims of intellectual copyright, malicious falsehood, and other charges at a hearing. The newest ruling allows them to pursue damages and a summary judgment, or a case where a judge decides the outcome sans a trial. While the Samherji CEO said he was satisfied with the result, especially the protection of their trademark for Odie, this is not over. He said, quote, "The purpose of the artwork apologizing was to put a spotlight on corporate responsibility and also to highlight freedom of expression for artists. Regardless of the outcome of the trial, the purpose of the artwork has been served and elevated by Samherji and this case," end quote. A headline that was a definite surprise to yours truly from last week: the United States archivist was accused by the Wall Street Journal of sanitizing American history exhibits. I'll tell you now, all of our sources cited the Wall Street Journal for this story, so really all the information traces back to them. And all of the information that the Wall Street Journal has was revealed by interviews with nearly a dozen former and current museum staffers, plus internal documents. The U.S. archivist, also known as the National Archives leader, in this case, Biden-appointed Colleen Shogan, allegedly removed mentions of negative events in United States history that might anger Republicans or upset visitors from planned displays over the next year, says the journal. According to this Wall Street Journal report, Shogun and other top aides directed employees to remove objects, to cut mentions of or references to the government's mass displacement of Native American communities, the World War II incarceration of Japanese Americans, and other unsavory details for these aforementioned purposes. More specifically, say these unnamed employees, this editing came in the form of changes to a major redesign and renovation project planned years before her tenure and which is expected to be completed next fall. They said she wanted to, quote, make sure the exhibits weren't promoting a partisan narrative, end quote. A bit of context/background that I think is really important here. Shogun's tenure has been heavily scrutinized by Republican legislators, especially since her 2022 appointment. She got the job only days before federal investigators probed former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort for classified documents following a criminal referral by the National Archives and Records Administration, which is the same agency that oversees the National Archives Museum. So she's become really negatively associated for Republicans with that event and with these agencies. The anonymous employees went on to report that these changes have also delayed the opening of some new exhibits originally slated for summer 2025 and are expected to pile onwards of $332,000 in costs. For its part, officially, the archives say, quote, the overall goal of redoing our signature galleries is to expand our storytelling and our ability to share our holdings with our visitors so all Americans can find their stories reflected in our spaces. But they do go on to say, with more than 13 billion records in our care, we can never display more than a tiny percentage of our collection, end quote. We'll keep you updated as the story develops. As overtourism threatens ancient sites, we've seen many countries take action, and now the Pompeii Archeological Park has joined in. It has officially capped the amount of visitors it will take at a time. In part of the announcement made by park officials last week, they noted that the park saw more than 4 million visitors this past summer, even 36,000 on a single Sunday. As a result, the park will cap daily attendance at 20,000 people beginning on November 15th. One of the interesting things about this cap is that it's not equal at all times of the day. For example, 9 a.m. to noon, attendance permits 15,000 visitors. But from noon to 5:30, there's a maximum of 5,000. Tickets from here on out will also be strategically personalized with the names of visitors in an attempt to diminish disruptions from tourists on the site, i.e., graffiti. We care about this action, honeys, because it is not an isolated thing. It's part of a bigger heritage protection context, specifically within Italy. Pompeii director Gabriel Zuctrigo says, quote, we are aiming for slow, sustainable, pleasant, and non-mass tourism, end quote. Pompeii Park's announcement came shortly after Rome's mayor, Roberto Gualtieri, announced a €2 or about $2.15 fee to visit the Trevi Fountain. This may be in part because the 1762 Baroque masterpiece is undergoing a $330,000 restoration through the end of the year. And earlier this year, Venice became the first city in the world to adopt a day visit tax for tourists stopping through its historic center after 20 million tourists made landfall there in 2023. That day pass charge of €5 or about $5.33 started in April and ran 57 days throughout the summer. It will pick back up again next spring at €10 or about $10.65. Clearly, Italy is trying a new strategy to get tourists to think twice about how they show up to these places and the impacts they have. The Centre Pompidou announced last week the debut of an AI sound installation by pop icon Björk. The work in question is a collaboration between her and French artist Aleph. Forming part of the Biodiversity, What Culture for What Future 4-day forum at the Parisian institution, it is titled Nature Manifesto. The work is meant to bring attention to the planet's mounting climate challenges via interplays, musical ones, of cries of endangered animals, textural soundscapes, as well as Björk's voice. It is 3 minutes and 40 seconds long. Viewers are meant to be completely immersed in the piece as they move between floors in the museum's chenille escalators. We care, of course, because it's a major artwork at a major forum with ecological concerns at the forefront. Says the Icelandic artist, quote, "We wanted to remind citizens of the raw vitality of endangered creatures." This latest work also builds on the artist's longstanding commitment to ecological activism. For examples, we can look back to her 2023 collab with Rosalia on the charity single Oral, aimed at halting Icelandic fish farming operations, or more recently, the release announcement of her upcoming climate-focused concert film, Cornucopia. And also, it's just really neat, a pop artist collaborating in AI soundscapes with such a major institution. I'm very curious to see how this turns out. And we'll close out today, honeys, with a bit more reflective of a story here. A recent spotlight on the so-called Subway Therapy public participatory art project gives us a hint into New Yorkers and maybe all of our post-election thoughts. Artist Matthew Chavez launched his participatory project back in 2016, though the idea started the year before while he was recovering from a motorbike accident. At first, Chavez aimed to be the quote-unquote New York secret keeper, asking strangers to confess a secret with him to lighten the burden of holding it. He says of this, quote, "As a stranger, it wouldn't be so heavy for me, but I would help them carry the weight," end quote. With time has come evolution of the project, which Chavez has made a phenomenon across the Metropolitan Transit Authority system. Soon after beginning this secret keeping, he pivoted to holding mock therapy sessions via a mobile so-called office in subway stations, complete with a standard practice wall art section and 2 chairs. When Donald Trump won the presidency for the first time in 2016, Chavez incorporated the opportunity for the thousands of daily subway riders to, instead of doing this whole fake session, rather write sticky notes on their thoughts. Among the messages left by strangers that time, there were ones such as, quote, "Love to my Muslim brothers and sisters," end quote, some angry sentiments towards the Electoral College, and the popular slogan, "Love Trump's hate." And now, 8 years later, Chavez has recreated the project, working mostly during the week of November 7th. Some of the immediately noticeable differences is that this year's boards have much fewer sticky notes, and the messages seem less reactive to a Trump win. This time they included calls to action like, quote, "Free all innocent Black men and women," and quote, "Love and protect trans people," end quote, and quote, "Free Cuba," end quote. Yet for as many political messages as there were, others simply wrote, quote, "Had an amazing date," end quote, or "The price of a coffee is wild expensive," end quote. Among the simple phrases like "brat" and "quiero Taco Bell" were very vulnerable writings about cancer diagnoses, grief for lost parents, and mental health struggles. While I'm aware the election and the results thereof it have been a very sore subject for a lot of Americans, I think this project shows what people are focused on in our communities right now and actually how much we share focus on. I think it's also fascinating to consider the whys behind the differences in these sticky notes' contents. How much of it is because we as Americans have changed and how much of it is due to the prompt? After all, Chavez himself attributes the difference in the messages to a change in this year's prompt from the past, "Express yourself for the election," to now, "What's on your mind?" Either way, there's still a lot of similarities in our thoughts, concerns, daily lives out there. And with that, I wrap it up for the day, honeys, and I wish you well. Remember to stay hydrated and take care of yourselves. Stay warm, too. It's starting to get darn cold here in Phoenix. I'm having to wear long sleeves or long pants, God forbid. In any case, take care. Talk soon. This podcast is produced, created, hosted, formerly edited, and fact-checked by master's degree holder Celia Bugno. Chris Meinhold is responsible for our editing, mixing, and our intro and outro music. Special thanks to him for that. And as always, remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, so on all your favorite listening as well as social media channels.